It's 4 a.m. in Los Angeles. The city is asleep. The gyms are empty, the streets are dark. Almost every professional athlete on the planet is still in bed. But in one gym, a light is already on. A single man is already 3 sets into his workout, hours before his opponents have even opened their eyes. This is not a story about talent. Kobe Bryant was not the most naturally gifted player to ever touch a basketball. What made him one of the greatest of all time was something else entirely. A mindset so extreme, so obsessive, that it eventually got its own name. He called it the Mamba Mentality. Today, we're going inside that mindset. Not the highlight reels everyone already knows, but the specific habits and decisions that actually built it, piece by piece. Kobe Bryant didn't grow up in America. He spent much of his childhood in Italy, where his father, Joe Jellybean Bryant, played professional basketball after his own NBA career ended. His father taught him the fundamentals of the game on European courts, far from the pressure and spotlight of American basketball, which meant Kobe could fall in love with the sport itself before he ever understood it as a career. As a kid, Kobe didn't have easy access to NBA games, so his grandparents in the U.S. would record games on VHS tapes and mail them to him in Italy, weeks after they aired. By the time the tapes arrived, Kobe already knew the final score. It didn't matter. He would watch the same games over and over, rewinding specific plays dozens of times, studying footwork, studying Michael Jordan's fadeaway, breaking it down frame by frame like game film. Most kids watch basketball for fun. Kobe was already studying it like a craft to be mastered. This is the first piece of the Mamba Mentality, long before it had a name. Obsessive, repetitive study. Deconstructing the game the way a musician slows down a solo to learn it note by note. That obsessive study never actually stopped. It just changed shape as he got older. Years later, as a veteran, Kobe created and hosted a documentary series called Detail, where he broke down other athletes' game film with the same intensity he once studied Jordan's. He'd pause footage frame by frame, pointing out footwork details that even professional analysts had missed. The same rewinding habit from his childhood bedroom in Italy, now aimed at an entire generation of younger players. It's easy to miss, but this detail matters. The habit itself never changed. Only the target did. This obsession evolved into something extreme once he reached the NBA. In his own autobiography, Kobe explained the actual logic behind his infamous early workouts. If he started training at 11 a.m., he could fit in maybe 2 sessions a day, with hours of rest between them. But if he started at 5 a.m. instead, he could fit in 3, sometimes 4 separate training sessions before most players had even had breakfast. Over the course of a single summer, that difference wasn't small. It was hundreds of extra hours of practice that his competitors simply didn't have. A former NBA coach, David Fizdale, once described walking into a gym expecting to be the first one there, only to find Kobe already drenched in sweat, deep into a session that had started while the rest of the league was still asleep. Kobe put it simply in a speech years later, quote, "We're up here because of 4 a.m. It wasn't a slogan. It was a literal description of where his advantage actually came from. If you want to understand how far this mindset actually went, there's one moment that says more than any highlight ever could. April 12, 2013. Late in a tightly contested game, Kobe planted his foot and felt something tear. It was his Achilles tendon, one of the most severe injuries an athlete can suffer, the kind that ends seasons and sometimes careers. Most players go down immediately. Kobe didn't. He got up. He asked the trainer one question. Could the injury get any worse if he kept playing? When the answer was no, he did something that stunned the entire arena. He walked to the free throw line on a torn Achilles and calmly made both shots before finally walking off the court under his own power. It wasn't about the 2 points. It was a decision made in less than a second, under real physical pain, to finish what he'd started rather than let the moment end on someone else's terms. That single choice became, for a lot of people, the clearest possible definition of what Mamba mentality actually meant in practice. This same intensity showed up in how Kobe treated every opponent, teammate, and practice session, not just injuries. Teammates have described him as one of the most difficult people to play alongside. Not because he was unkind, but because his standards were relentless. On January 22, 2006, Kobe scored 81 points in a single game against the Toronto Raptors, the second highest single-game total in NBA history. What's less talked about is what happened after. Teammates described him immediately shifting focus to what could still be improved, as if 81 points was simply data for the next target. 2 years later, at the 2008 Beijing Olympics, that same intensity showed up again, this time against his own Lakers teammate, Pau Gasol, who was playing for Spain in the final. According to teammate LeBron James, Kobe told the team beforehand exactly how hard he intended to play against his own friend. On the very first possession, he did exactly what he said he would. A year later, after taking a 2-0 lead in the 2009 NBA Finals, a reporter asked Kobe why he didn't look happier. His answer became one of his most quoted lines. Quote, "What's there to be happy about? Job's not finished." This is the part of Mamba mentality that rarely makes it into motivational quotes. It wasn't primarily about beating other people. It was about refusing to let his own last performance become the ceiling. When Kobe retired in 2016, after scoring 60 points in his final game, most legends in his position would have coasted on that legacy. He didn't. He redirected the exact same obsessive work ethic toward a completely new field, storytelling. He started a media company and personally wrote and narrated an animated short film called Dear Basketball, based on a letter he'd written years earlier announcing his own retirement. In 2018, Dear Basketball won the Academy Award for Best Animated Short Film. Kobe Bryant became an Oscar winner in a completely different discipline than the one that made him famous, only 2 years after retiring from professional basketball. Same relentless preparation. Different arena entirely. This is arguably the most underrated part of his story. Mamba mentality was never actually about basketball. It was a transferable operating system that Kobe proved could be pointed at anything. On January 26, 2020, Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash in Calabasas, California, alongside his 13-year-old daughter Gianna and 7 other people. He was 41 years old. The news stopped the sports world, and much of the wider world, in its tracks. It remains one of the most shocking celebrity deaths of the last 2 decades. In the years since, the Mamba mentality he described in interviews and in his own book has taken on a life far beyond basketball. It's worth remembering that Gianna herself was already deep into that same mindset. Kobe had spent his final years coaching her youth basketball team, passing the exact same obsessive attention to detail on to the next generation, the way his own father once had with him. In 2017, the Lakers retired both of his jersey numbers at once, an almost unheard of honor. Number 8 from the first half of his career, and number 24 from the second, as if even his own franchise couldn't sum him up with a single number. It's referenced today by entrepreneurs, students, other athletes, and coaches across completely unrelated fields, almost always pointing back to the same core idea. Talent starts the process, but obsessive, unglamorous repetition finishes it. So what's the actual takeaway here, beyond just admiring someone else's discipline? It's this. Kobe Bryant wasn't working out at 4 a.m. because he loved waking up early. He did it because he'd calculated, deliberately and specifically, exactly what extra hours could buy him that talent alone couldn't. Mamba mentality was never magic, and it definitely wasn't comfortable. It was a series of specific, deliberate, often unglamorous decisions, repeated for years, long after the motivation of the moment had worn off. That's the part most people skip when they talk about greatness. If you found this breakdown useful, subscribe. Every week we go inside the mind of a different exceptional person. looking past the headlines for the actual decisions that built them.